Hey guys, so this is a backlit Game Boy Color. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to do this using very minimal tools. So as long as you have some very basic things like a Dremel tool and a soldering iron, this should be pretty simple. I mean, it still takes quite a bit of work, but I think just about anybody can do this if you have a little bit of patience. Let's get started. I'll show you how to do this. So I'm going to show you an easier method now using only a simple Dremel tool, and let's see, I just have this really simple little like a sandpaper drum. This is just like a tiny little metal bit. Here, I'll show you, I'll zoom in. So here's the little drum, here's the little, I don't know what this is called. It's just like a little, you can find small tools. This is to get rid of most of the bulk around here, but to get into the tiny little corners, you're going to need something a little bit smaller. So something small like this kind of helps. And then if you don't have like these nippers, oops, they really help to like clean up initially all of this part first. But if you don't have those, then something like a cutoff wheel like this is pretty good. You can use it in this way. So I'm going to start with this, and yep, so let's see how we do. I used to machine all of my shells this way. I haven't done it for a while, so hopefully it kind of goes okay. So basically we're only going to be dealing with this part. There's a couple things we need to do on this side, but I'll show you after. So to start with, I'm just going to use my cutoff wheel and cut away all of the stuff on the top here. And it's going to make a big mess, so just, yep. Okay. A little faster. Okay, so here's part of it off now. You can see it kind of makes a big mess. And what this method really melts the plastic, which is fine. You know, it kind of hardens and then it melts and then hardens, and you just kind of have to, like, you know, pull it away like that. But that's not a bad start. I'm going to do this part here real quick. This part. Okay, and I need to do this part too, but this wheel is too big to really get in there, so I think that's it for this cutoff wheel. So now I'm going to switch over to this little sanding drum, and let me clean up this area real quick. So now the technique I use for this is pretty much you want to kind of go back and forth like this. You don't want to have you always want to be across, so you can be as flat as possible. If you're too close to the edge here, you have a chance of hitting the edge of the shell where you don't want to cut away. And the goal here, first we're going to remove all this and make it nice and smooth, but then we're going to have to actually go in and make this whole area thinner, which is a bit of a challenge, but it's not too bad. So let's see, I think you guys can probably see best if I do it like this. And real quick, I'm going to put on some eye protection. Okay, so I'll show you up close here. So it's starting to get pretty smooth. This is what a final machine shell looks like. So I machined this on my drill press, which you can see it looks much cleaner than how this is coming out. And it's not going to look as clean, but everything we do is going to be in this area, so it's going to be covered up by it's going to be covered by your lens. So you don't have to worry too much, especially on these opaque shells. If you're doing a translucent shell, like a clear shell, you want to be careful not to scrape these edges, but that's much more difficult. An opaque shell is much easier to start with. See, I just did this one on my drill press too, and you can see where it's not too bad. It kind of scratched a little bit, and there's ways to clean that up. You can kind of use sometimes I use my soldering iron and just like very, very gently on low heat, just touch up some areas. But again, that's going to be all covered up by the lens, so you don't have to worry too much. So what I'm looking for is this area here. You want this to be thinner. You can see it's a little bit thicker here, it's slightly thinner here, and it's not too noticeable yet. But I'm just going to keep going over and over in very, very light passes, because you don't want to punch through. It's okay if you punch through a tiny bit, but if you punch through too much, you can go through on the edge or something, and then it's kind of ruined. So just keep going over slowly in light passes. It's kind of do a little bit and then check, and then do a little bit and then check, and so I'm gonna keep going. So this is just about there. I actually kind of punched through slightly. There are, if you look at a normal Game Boy Color shell, there's actually these tiny little holes. So that's kind of what one of these holes was here. But it kind of went through slightly, but it's okay. It's not too bad. So these collets are different sizes. This is the normal standard size. This one's a little bit smaller. I think that's what I need. Yeah, it's better. So now I'm just kind of cleaning it up a little. But it's kind of a rough edge, so this will help me get into the corner a little better. Alright, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm just gonna... Alright, so it's not super pretty the way this one looks, but it's as thin as you need now. You can see this side is, see how thick this side is compared to this side. This side's now pretty thin. But yeah, that should be thin enough. So that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and go around and finish the rest of this, and I'll just speed it up so you guys can watch it, but you know, it won't be too long. So back to the little standing room. Alright, so this is so much messier, so much more messy than machining it in my drill press. Because when you machine it with here too, or when you trim the shell with this, you're kind of not really cutting, you're just kind of like melting, and then it just kind of turns into like dust, and yeah, it's not very good, but yeah, it's a lot easier, and it's just very minimal tools, you know, just a Dremel, that's it. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of this, and you guys can watch. So it's getting there. One thing that kind of helps sometimes, I'm going to take this off and show you real quick. You can see how much of a mess it's making. There's little bits all over all the way over there. I even got some in my drink here. Oh well. Anyway, so what really helps sometimes, if you hold it up to the light, you can kind of see, you can see where it's thicker, like right there is a little bit thicker, over here is pretty thin, here's where I actually blew through it, but it's fine, it's still going to be covered by the lens. I'm going to go ahead and just leave that in so you guys can see what happens when that happens. It's really thick in this corner here, so I'm going to need to go in there. This part's almost done. Need to go through a little bit more, and then definitely the top, and then it'll be good. My battery died, so I'm going to charge it in a minute. So, I guess while my Dremel tool is charging, I'll just talk to you guys a little bit here. So Peter's my best friend, and we've been doing all kinds of stuff together since like high school. Him and we just moved to LA. I'm just here back at my parents' house for the weekend, but we're in LA now, and we are starting game development, so I'm probably going to post some stuff on this channel about it, but we have another channel called Take Zero that's primarily videos about me and Peter. So we're going to be posting the majority of those videos over there. So I'll link to that in the description and at the end of this video, so if you guys want to check that out, if any of you are interested. But yeah, we're working on a couple different game ideas. I have my own personal game project. He has his own personal game project. But for this month, because we're kind of locked in a room together, we're going to be working on a collaborative game. That's it'll be primarily for like Mac and PC. We might release it on like other platforms. I'm not sure yet, but it's pretty much like a explorative. It's like a 3D exploration. I don't want to call it a walking simulator. I kind of don't like that name, but yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting little game, and we have a month to make it, so it'll be a challenge, but I think we can do it. Anyway, I'm just gonna maybe vacuum a little bit and clean up while I wait, because this dust, when you machine the shells with this method, that dust just gets everywhere. So, and I don't have my studio anymore. I'm just in my bedroom, so it's kind of troublesome to have Game Boy dust everywhere. I got it in my iced tea, and yeah. So anyway. Alright, we are on yellow now, so I have some more power. I think that'll be enough to finish it. We'll see. Gotta charge it more. I do also have this, which is a flex shaft, it's called. But I mean, it's pretty much just a Dremel tool. I have pretty much the same thing on here, but I know you guys probably don't have one of these, so I'll just keep waiting for it to charge, and really gonna have to vacuum all my room after this. Okay, so I think we're done with the machining. Even though it's not really machining. Just to show you guys what it's going to look like. You can see where I messed up a little bit here and right there, just a tiny bit. But the lens completely covers that, so it's really nothing to worry about too much. It would be kind of destroyed if you had gone past it, you know. But yeah, that's kind of one of the issues of machining it this way. It's minimal tools, but it's a lot harder to do. And I got to the point where I was really good. I didn't make any more mistakes, but it's been quite a while. And I was actually using even better tools than that. I was using this flex shaft, and I have a lot of different tips and things. And but yeah, so it's possible to machine the shell with only a Dremel tool, pretty much. So let me clean this up, and I'll show you. You can pretty much follow the other tutorial, but I'm going to go ahead and just finish this so you can see the end result. Okay, all nice and clean. The rest of the process is pretty similar. I do have a few additional tips, so I'll kind of explain those as I go through. But so this is the motherboard. I've already gone and trimmed these pins, masked this off. I removed the little power LED from right there. Yep, that's all we need to do for this, is just those two areas, remove the power LED. For the back, let's go ahead and do the back real quick. pretty much just remove the shield. And I found a pretty easy method to adjust this, because we need to remove these two tabs, this tab here and this tab here. So I found one of the easiest ways is to literally just bend it. You know, just bend it back and forth. It kind of just bends naturally where it needs to break. And then you're done. It does leave a slight rough edge, so it's up to you if you want to trim that, like clean it up a little, but it's not too bad, and it's plenty to, because we don't want this little tab going over this part anymore. So yeah, that's plenty. That's all you need to do. So now we can go ahead and put the screws back on the shield. So one tip for old electronics like this, when you're putting screws in, this screwdriver is not very magnetic anymore. So get it in the slot, but you want to back it off. So do it in the opposite direction until you kind of hear like a little click right there. And it's going to be really subtle, but you basically want to be using the same threads that already exist. So now we need to remove this piece here. This one we can leave, it's okay. We need to remove this little bit. I don't think this one's usually in the way, but I'll remove that one anyway. This little tab and this little tab. This one might not be in the way either, but the main important ones are this one, and this one. And then we also need to trim this down and this down, just make it a little bit flatter. So the screw brackets are going to be going here and here. So you can see that the screw brackets are going to sit like this in here. And so basically we need it to be deeper in here. So we need to make this deeper. Or we need to trim some of this away so this can sit in there deeper. And it also kind of hits these little tabs right there. Here, I'll zoom in so you can see a little better. So that hits that little tab right there. And I guess it doesn't hit that one, so we don't really need to worry about that one, but I usually remove it anyway. And then same thing on this side. So let's see. For these two parts, you go back to our Dremel tool. Should have done this before I cleaned up, but and you want this to be flush with this this little lanyard hole, so you can kind of just feel this feels not as high as this. This still feels higher than this, so I'm going to remove a little bit more. Okay, so we're done with that. Now I just need to clean it up with an X-Acto blade here. I'm using a scalpel blade on an X-Acto knife. And now to remove these, it's much easier to just use these, but in case you don't have those, it's perfectly fine to just use an X-Acto or something like this. I guess you could use your Dremel too. Okay, so I just scored that, and now kind of bend that back and forth. There we go, there's that. And now to remove these, and just get it in there and then push down like that, and cut it off. Same thing. I guess we don't need to worry about that one, so I'm just going to do this one. So slice it down and then cut it on the bottom. There we go. So that's all there is to the back. So now back to, I found this new Loctite plastic bonder epoxy. This stuff is the only thing you should be using now. This works amazingly. Basically, it's kind of has some kind of solvent that kind of really bonds the plastic together well, as well as having epoxy in it. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Before I was just using regular epoxy, and that does work, but this stuff just permanently bonds the brackets in there. So I have a broken LCD. So this is kind of what I use for testing, but you can probably use your actual LCD. You just want to make sure that you've removed the housing. And I also have a broken, you can see it's not working. I've taken a bunch of parts from this for other Game Boy Colors, but this is a motherboard that isn't working. So I put both of these on there just to get the right height for the brackets. And then, actually, let's move this over a little more. Okay. So we have our brackets. I like to use 2 toothpicks and just a piece of tape, so that way I can just peel it away and throw away the epoxy I didn't use. Depending on the brackets you use, if you're going to be using a bluish squirrel lens, the screen actually needs to sit a little bit higher. So if you have brackets from like retro modding, basically all you need to do is use your Dremel tool and take this part here and kind of just make it a little bit thinner, so that way the screen can sit higher up, if that makes sense. These are pretty good. These are the ones that I make. When you put them in here, the screen can fit all the way flush up against them. And depending on the shell, I've actually encountered a couple aftermarket shells that it's not perfectly aligned. So sometimes I like to go ahead and just remove a little bit anyway. And I found the best way to do that, if you are going to do it, is just with a cutoff wheel like this. And then just hold it in your hand like this, and you're going to be grinding away this part here. And that's it. You just want to make sure it's nice and straight, and clean up any excess that kind of melts to the side. This one kind of made a little bit of a hole, but it doesn't really matter. It's just as long as this gets thinner, so the screen can sit higher up. I'll do this one. Yeah, so you can see that it's a little bit thinner now. Okay, so now get these ready. And that's probably too much, but okay. So this was extra of this side, but anyway, I think this part's pretty equal here. So just mix up your plastic bond or epoxy, and I like to get a little bit and put it on the inside of the shell first, right where the bracket's gonna go, because the solvents in this kind of start eating away at the plastic and making it kind of tacky. The edge here especially is important because there's a lot of surface area for it to adhere to back there, but not very much on the edge here. So, and then just like the other tutorial, I'm putting it on the edge, just like this. I like to make sure I put kind of a lot, so it kind of really make sure that it kind of squishes out, because you can always clean it up after, but if you don't put enough, then they can dislodge. But this plastic bonder really helps. Okay, so now make sure this is all good, and then get it in there, just like that. Kind of hold it in place. And with this new method, I'm not even going to clamp them. I'm just going to put them in here, clean up the little spill out, and that's pretty much it. Kind of make sure it's really tight in there and kind of holding in place. And now do the same thing to the other side. And this one has a gap because of the lanyard hole. So I'd like to really make sure that this side has a lot, especially on this part right here. And this stuff does cure pretty fast, so you don't have a whole lot of working time, but it's a little bit longer than normal epoxy, I would say. And again, I like to put kind of a lot here. And some on the bottom. Okay. Clean it up. And so now push these back into how they're supposed to go one more time to make sure they're really in there well. And then lift up your motherboard, slide it out, easing off the pressure so they kind of stay in place. And then take your screen out just like this. And now double check to make sure that they're in place nicely. Got a piece of plastic. Yeah, it looks good. And obviously the longer you wait, the better. It's probably fine if you only wait a couple hours, but I'm going to go ahead and let this sit overnight. I did make a lot here, so something I like to do is to take a little bit extra and kind of slide it underneath here and then twist it towards the bracket to really get a little bit extra underneath there, especially on this side. But I'll do the same thing over here. Just get a little bit extra in there. And that's pretty much it. If you want, you can leave your toothpick in the epoxy. So when this hardens, you can feel it. So that way you know when this is ready.
6.5 hours later.
Now you can see that the epoxy is pretty stiff on here. So the tape makes it really easy to just pick this up and throw it away. So I'll do that. And now, the way to find out where to drill the holes are to just take their back and put it on. Stick it in the hole. It's a little more difficult to see on the black brackets, but it does work fine. Yeah, you can see it there. So this is the drill bit that I use. So I normally use it with a on my drill press. So I think what I'm going to do is try to fit this in my Dremel, and hopefully I can drill straight. I'm going to poke a tiny dot in the center to kind of guide the drill bit a little. So I'm going to drill this really slow, and I'm going to try and do it from straight above and just make a hole as perfectly straight as I can through that hole. It's going to be kind of hard to see here, so okay, yeah, that wasn't too bad. It worked pretty well. Okay, so now that that's all drilled and ready to go, a few more things we need to do. A big old bag of screws. I need 6 of those to kind of cut the threads in the brackets. I'm just going to go ahead and screw this in and then unscrew it. It's easier now than when it's all closed up. So, IR port cover. With a bracket in the way, we're going to need to remove a little bit of this side. So I'm going to switch my Dremel tool again. You could probably use either of these. I'm going to go ahead and use, I'll use the cutoff wheel. So it's up to you. What I like to do is just add a little bit of super glue to just the bottom on the edge right here. So just a tiny drop there and a tiny drop there. I'm going to put in the power LED. So I cut a little piece of Kapton tape and I put that over the front, just like that. You guys can't see. These are 0402 LEDs. Stick it down to the tape in there. It's not super sticky on such a tiny little piece, but it does kind of hold it in place. And with that held in place, just dab a little bit of hot glue in the hole. And let it cool a second before you push it in, but push it in with your finger. And I like to flip it over to make sure that the LED is aligned. So there you can see it looks pretty good right in the center. And just keep pressing. And there we go. You can peel this off and it makes a nice little flat thing. So that's all done. Here's the proper LCD I'm going to be using. So I just take this and slide it under the brackets. Just like that. And get some tape and cover up these 2 little pads, because you don't want those shorting out on anything. And I have a pretty good idea of where the screen needs to go, all the way up against the brackets, and because I trimmed them, I'm going to move it down slightly. And I'm just going to put 1 little dab of hot glue right here. If you have some canned air, you can just cool off your hot glue really quickly. And it's done. Here are my buttons. And here's my motherboard. Here's my ribbon. This ribbon does require some masking. This is a 2.4. So on the back side of this ribbon, there's this big metal plate. So I'm going to cover that up. I'm not even going to be too accurate or anything, it's just cover it up a little. The one part that we are going to need to access here is the start pad. So I'm going to add some solder there. For now, let's go ahead and trim these screws. I don't know the best way to do that without a little vise. I've been typically using this little Dremel D vise, it says, and this really helps to hold the screws in place while I cut them with my Dremel here. But you guys might not have that, so maybe I'll just try holding them with a pair of pliers, like this. I'm definitely going to wear safety glasses for this. So it's going to be really hot, but it's kind of working. It's just you just have to be really firm, but you don't want to be too firm because you're going to destroy the threads on the screw. So maybe I'll actually hold the head of the screw like I normally. No, that's okay. So maybe kind of at an angle like that. That seems to give it some stability. Okay, so that actually worked. It's not ideal, it kind of hurts your hand, but alright, it's cool enough now. So yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and trim the rest of those screws. Okay, so that surprisingly worked pretty well. So there's the two shortest ones that go in the middle, these two go on the very bottom, and these two are for the screw brackets. So I'll only trim these four. These are normal full length, and these are the other two screws for the motherboard. I guess for now I'll have to go ahead and put those in here. Okay, so the power LED, the negative is on the left. That's the black wire, and positive is on the right, the red wire. Sometimes I trim it, but sometimes I like to leave it long if I know I'm going to open it up again. And I'm probably going to open this one up again, so I just kind of just tape it in place like that. Okay, so now for the back, got to take this off to put the screws in. Oh yeah, for the power switch. Okay. So again, if you have some of these flush cutters, it's super easy to just trim it here, but I'm going to assume you guys don't have one of those, so I think I showed this trick before. You just use your knife in here. I don't want to do it on this. I don't really want to do it on my nice desk here either, but oh well. I just wiggle it back and forth. There we go. So I got one side. I'm just going to show you what it's like with these. You just get it in there and cut and you're done. It's a nice, smooth, even finish. It's actually better than the cut I did here because this cut wasn't quite even, whereas this one's nice and straight. So I need to fix this one a little bit. Just cut off a little bit more. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so now gently set that there. And the way that I do this is get it in place and hold it down so that the power switch kind of falls down. And then just line up everything. Feels good. Okay, so now the two long screws go on the bottom here. And the medium length ones go on to the screw brackets. Don't really need to back this one off because we're putting it into new threads here. So there's that one. And be careful not to over tighten these because it's not like a normal thread. It's just a 3D printed screw bracket. So okay, feels good. The gap is very nice and neat all along the edge here. And I still need to go in and align the screen and put in a lens, but I'm just going to test it like this for now. You guys can figure that part out or watch my other tutorial. So there we go, power LED's working. Where's my test game? Here it is. There's another one I recently finished. This is my Pokemon Yellow test game. Oh, looks pretty good. Turn that off. So yeah, I guess that's all for this one, you guys. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all about building these. If you guys want the STL files for the screw brackets or anything like that, just let me know, and I always try and respond to everybody in the comments. I also try to put a lot of information in the description box and all that. So yeah, I guess that's it. I will see you guys next time.